Hey, I want to thank everybody for being here for the first Civil Justice Full Committee meeting of the 2023 113th General Assembly. It's good to be here. It's like we've been here for weeks now, which I think we have, but we're finally having our first full committee meeting. We've got bills up today. We have Supreme Court nomination of Mr. Dwight Tarwater sitting there. Happy to have you here, sir. And just looking forward to get started. But as we normally do, there's a couple things I would like to do before we go in. We need to call the roll. That'd be first. So, Madam Clerk, if you go ahead and do that.
Representatives Beck, Bricken, Bolso,
Here.
Capley, Eldridge, Gant, Garrett, Grills, Harris, Lamberth, Littleton, Parkinson, Powell, Russell, Stevens, Todd, Vice Chairman Jernigan, Chairman Farmer.
Here.
Mr. Chairman, you have a quorum.
All right, thank you so much. And I'd just like to take the opportunity. I'm going to give the members an opportunity to go ahead and just introduce themselves to the crowd and everyone who's watching. Like I said, I know you've probably done this every other committee, but let's go ahead and get this done today. Representative Todd, if you start us out.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Representative Chris Todd from Jackson. I represent District 73, which is about 2/3 of Madison County. And I'm a native of Henry County in Paris, Tennessee, but moved to Jackson when I went to college and stayed there. Met my lovely wife, Melissa, at college, and we've had 3 wonderful children, 2 sons and a daughter in the middle. They're college and beyond now. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Kip Capley. I represent the 71st District, western part of Murray County, northwest part of Lawrence County, all of Wayne County, and part of Hardin County. I reside in Lawrence County. I'm a football coach and youngest member of the General Assembly, and I'm just blessed to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Rusty Grills. I represent Dyer, Lake, and Obion counties in the northwest corner of West Tennessee. I am a farmer there. I farm with my family on a 9th-generation farm. We raise corn, soybeans, have a few cows. My wife is Christy. We've been married 17 years. We have 2 children, Hadley and Jaxie. I'm delighted to serve with you, Chairman Farmer, and look forward to your leadership this year.
Thank you, Chairman. Darren Jernigan, representing District 60. That's East Davidson County, Donaldson, Hermitage, and Old Hickory. This is my second session as Vice Chairman, and always good to be under the leadership of Chairman Farmer. Married, 4 children, 2 of them on the payroll, 2 off. I'm working hard on that. But I'm just glad to be here for another 2 years. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jason Powell, I represent District 53, which is in South Davidson, South Nashville. I am married, have 2 children, both in public schools, and professionally, I'm in real estate, and happy to be on this committee. First time on this committee, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
I'm Representative Lowell Russell from the 21st District. I was first elected in 2018. 21st District consists of half of Monroe County and half of Loudoun County. I'm a retired state trooper and have a real estate business or a rental business.
Torrey Harris, State Representative for House District 91. I used to be in House District 90 before redistricting. That's Memphis, Tennessee. I represent parts of Midtown Memphis, all the way over to South Memphis, to Whitehaven, to Highland and Poplar. I have a lot of the universities and colleges in my area. This is my second time serving on civil justice, and look forward to this committee.
Bill Beck from what's our district again? I'm just kidding. I'm Antonio Parkinson. I represent District 98, which covers most of the north part of the Memphis area, and I'm looking forward to serving on this committee. It's a great committee, great people on the committee, so looking forward to it. Thanks.
William Lamberth. I'm just honored to sit next to Representative Parkinson. Sumner County's area I represent, and Chairman Farmer and I came in together now just over 10 years ago, so honored to serve with you all.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Gino Bolso. It's a pleasure to have all of you here This afternoon, I have the privilege to represent District 61, which is most of Brentwood, Tennessee, just south of Davidson County, and a good chunk of Franklin as well. My wife and I have lived in that community for 28 years now. We raised all 5 of our children there, and we now have 7 wonderful little grandchildren that we look forward to seeing every weekend.
I'm the real Bill Beck, and welcome to District 51, which you're sitting in, which my district is all of downtown, East Nashville, Inglewood, Madison, and Donaldson. Thrilled to be back on Civil Committee following a stint over on the Criminal Committee, and happy that each and every one of you are here. I have a beautiful wife of over 30 years and a beautiful daughter that we got married off last year. Thank you so much.
I'm Mary Littleton. I represent the 78th District, which is half of Dixon and all of Cheatham County. I came in 2000, we ran in 2012 with the Leader Lambert and Chairman Farmer, and I think Vice Chair Jernigan. So we were a big crowd, and there's a lot of them still left, and it's a pleasure to serve with them. I'm a mother of 3, a grandmother of 5, and soon to be grandmother of 6. And I'm going to ahead and say it. I've been happily divorced for 14 years. So, it's a pleasure to be here on Civil Justice and with y'all today. So, and thank y'all for letting me be here.
I'm Rick Eldridge. I represent District 10, which is up in East Tennessee. It's Granger and part of Hamlin County. And I've been here since 2018. Representative Russell's one of the members that I came in with, and Chairman Bricken here. And it's been an honor to represent the area up there. And I have been married for 42 years. I have 2 children and 7 grandchildren, and I have a new great grandson. So, and I'm retired out of the glass business. I ran a little small company, did repair work. So it's a pleasure to be here and to serve the people of Tennessee. Thank you.
I'm Rush Bricken, 47th District, the counties of Coffee and Grundy, and it's certainly just an honor to be serving under Chairman Farmer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Robert Stevens. I represent the District 13, which is the western 5th of Rutherford County. That's parts of Laverne, Smyrna, Murfreesboro, Rockvale, and Eagleville. I just got elected in November. It's a newly created district. Prior to this, I served on the county commission for 12 years. And then by profession, I am an attorney that practices in the civil area. So I'm very excited to be here and look forward to working with everyone.
My name is Johnny Garrett. I also represent the other half of Sumner County, Hendersonville, Goodlettsville, White House, Shackle Island, Cottontown in Sumner County. I've been married to my wife. This year will be 21 years. We have 3 kiddos, and I'll be celebrating my 16th year in the practice of the civil world of law. And so despite our Chairman Farmer, I absolutely love this committee. So,
Well, thank you for that. Now, we were talking about people who came in together, along with myself, Leader Lambert, Mary Littleton, and Vice Chair Jernigan. We had Jason Powell. He came in with us going on 11 years ago. So didn't want to make mention of that. I'm Andrew Farmer, and I'm going to be chairing this committee this year. And I'm thankful for the speaker putting me here once again. I do have a passion and a love for this committee and all the folks that come before it and testify, and we certainly appreciate that. I represent portions of Sevier and Jefferson counties, have a wife, 2 kids at home, a very patient wife, I may say, 2 wonderful kids at home, but really looking forward to getting started today. I want to go ahead with that and just let everyone know who we have with us who really makes things happen. Have an intern, Shreya Gupta, or Shreya, excuse me, Shreya Gupta. She's back there. She's an intern for the year, doing a great job. I have research analyst here, Courtney Kaufman. She was with Representative Garrett there, but now she is here as a research analyst. Appreciate her for being here with us today. And have house clerks. We have Laura Stewart. We have Emily Johnson. And our legal staff, we have Elizabeth and Sonia. So happy to have her and Michelle Fogarty and Taylor Overton as our attorneys to help keeping us attorneys straight. We certainly need that. And we have our sergeant at arms. We have Johnny McDonald down there. And I certainly wouldn't be able to do what I've done over the past 10 years, going on 11, without Robbie Farmer beside me. She's my secretary and cares for me and looks out for me. So I certainly appreciate everything she's done for me and we'll continue to do so. Thank you, Robbie. And we have civil justice procedures will be emailed out today. I think those probably already have, but those will be done. If you want to be added to the distribution list, let Courtney or Robbie know. That's with the subcommittee meetings or whatnot. We can get you on that list. Deadline to put a bill on notice is Wednesday at 3:30. Deadline to put an amendment on notice is Monday at 10 a.m. 24 hours written notice must be given to the committee if you wish to testify, and you must fill out the testimony sheet, which 4 people did that today, and I appreciate that. If they need either, they can email Courtney or Robbie. So either way, if you need to be emailed that, we'll try to make that happen and try to work through that. That's something fairly new. But with that, we do have a calendar. But before we take up today's calendar, what I'd like to do is I'd like to call up Mr. Dwight Tarwater and Aaron Merrick. We're going to have our hearings on Mr. Dwight Tarwater's nomination to the Tennessee State Supreme Court, which came from our governor. This was done by a constitutional amendment proposing the judicial confirmation process approved by the voters of this state on November 4, 2014. The procedures governing the process were passed into law by the General Assembly back in January 28th of 2016. When a vacancy occurs, the governor appoints a nominee to fill the vacancy subject to a vote of both chambers of the General Assembly. The roles of the Civil Justice Committee of the House of Representatives and the Judiciary Committee of the Senate are to hold hearings on a nominee and to provide a recommendation either for confirmation of the nominee or rejection of the nominee to the respective bodies. And an outline of the hearing, here's how this will proceed. The governor's chief counsel will introduce each nominee to the committee, which we have one nominee, and that's Mr. Dwight Tarwater with us today. The nominee will make an opening statement, and then I'll open the floor from questions from the committee members today. So with that said, once we've had the opportunity to have questions from the nominee, I'll go out of sessions and do that, go out of session and do that. And then once we go back into session, I'll entertain either a nomination for recommendation to the full body or against. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and without objection, go out of session so we can hear from Ms. Aaron Merrick and Dwight Tarwater. So we're out of session without objection.
Governor Lee.
Oh, yep. Sometimes you have to, and it's weird, get an angle there.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh,
There you
all right. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Vice Chairman, and members of the committee. My name is Aaron Merrick, and I'm Chief Counsel to Governor Lee. I'm thrilled to be introducing today Governor Lee's nominee for the Supreme Court, Dwight Tarwater. I met Dwight 9 years ago when we were working together to pass the constitutional amendment that the chairman just mentioned that would establish this process. So it is only fitting that the two of us are here today in fulfillment of our work of the past decade. Dwight has a unique resume showing depth and breadth of experience. But as we know, experience isn't measured only in days and months and years, but it's also measured in the diversity of the complex legal issues that one handles over the course of their career. And Dwight has such extensive experience in all areas that will be truly enriching to our court. After attending the University of Tennessee for both undergraduate and law school, Dwight clerked on the Tennessee Court of Appeals and then spent 34 years in private practice. He began his own law firm in the Knoxville area in 1987. He has handled civil cases of all types, including mass tort, commercial litigation, and class action defense. He's been nationally recognized for his work, and he's represented clients in over 20 states. And as many of you know and even experienced firsthand, Dwight served as chief counsel to Governor Haslam. And that role exposed him to the ins and outs of our government process, including the legislative process, in a truly profound way. He understands how government works because he's been here. And that experience in particular will be so valuable to our court. After serving Governor Haslam, Dwight returned to practicing complex litigation at his firm in Knoxville. And in a moment, he will share some comments with you about his desire to return to state service, and then he'll be available for questions. But please note that Dwight may not be able to answer some of the questions that you asked. In this current position, he is bound by the Code of Judicial Conduct, which requires impartiality, among other things. And answering certain types of questions could make him ineligible to decide certain cases later on. So, for example, he will have a limited ability to express his personal viewpoints or to critique certain pieces of legislation or certain other cases, because those are the types of matters that could come before him as a Supreme Court justice. What I want you to know and what the governor wants you to know is that Governor Lee trusts Dwight with this appointment and wants Dwight to remain eligible to decide all of those cases that could come before him in the future. So without further ado, Dwight Tarwater.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Tarwater. And I had one thing. I did, members, without objection, I did want to read one thing. I had a email that was sent to me from Deborah Taylor Tate. Ms. Tate was the executive director of the AOC, well respected and loved for what all the years of service she put in up here. And she sent an email, and I just want to read just a little bit of it. It said, regarding Mr. Tarwater's decades of complex litigation experience, talking about his knowledge of the law, his integrity and humility. She said he has a firm grasp on the separation of government and adheres to the philosophy that the court is the interpreter and the legislature is the creator of law. He has been honored here by his peers and across the entire country as one of the nation's top litigators. He will bring a new perspective and depth and breadth of government issues, having served in the honorable position of counsel to the governor. And members, I thought that was worthy and noteworthy for us to know that Ms. Tate has that to say about Mr. Tarwater. And I didn't mean to interrupt you, sir. I certainly want to give you your, so members, Mr. Dwight Tarwater, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My mic is working, correct?
It is. Yes, yes, sir.
You know how lawyers are. We want to make sure that we can be heard sometimes. Sometimes might be better that we're not heard. I come before you today as maybe the most humbled person in the world. I was so honored to receive the governor's appointment, the governor's nomination for this. I never thought that my career would take me here. I am so eager to serve, and I want to serve, and I want to serve the state. So let me start out by saying thank you to Aaron Merrick for that nice introduction. Thank you to Governor Lee for trusting me with you. And thank you to those who supported me and encouraged me along the way, like Debbie Tate, who I was in law school with, and General Slatery, who I was also in law school with. As a matter of fact, when I got to Nashville, they were calling him General Slatery, and they were calling me Private First Class Tarwater. As I approached this process, I could not help but think about my time in service to the governor and in service to the people of the state. I saw the needle move in different ways than you see when you're on a nonprofit board or a bar association board. Saw the good that's done in this building. I see our state flourishing, full employment, good policy, good lawmaking. And I wondered if I would ever find my way back to serve. I was obviously very happy back at the law firm that I founded. I was busy. And when I was surprised when Justice Lee announced her retirement, and I began to look in my heart to see if I should make myself available to do this. I realized that my skill set's a bit unique. I have a lot of litigation experience. I've got general counsel experience. I know my way around Nashville, around Capitol Hill. I traveled pretty freely within all branches of government. And let me tell you what I did to decide if I should do this. I asked myself 3 questions. First, I asked myself, will my clients be okay? I didn't want to leave anybody in the lurch. And I discussed it with some of them, and they were, without exception, positive and encouraging. And my cases are in a spot where I can make an effective transition should I receive your recommendation. The second thing I did was this. I looked in my heart, a good Tennessee heart, born and raised in Knoxville on the Tennessee River, and educated at the University of Tennessee, raised my kids here. My wife and I feel like we did a pretty good job with that, and founded my law firm in Knoxville and practiced here. And so I looked in my heart to make sure that there was not a shred of idolatry there, that I was doing this for the right reasons, that I was being obedient to the process, being obedient to the rule of law, being obedient to the profession. And what I found there was a resounding, yes, you are doing this for the right reasons. I can promise you, it's not about the black robe for me. I want to do the work. I want to decide the most important cases that our state has. I want to bring to the court my unique experience. I want to represent the court in the community, to be a good ambassador for the judiciary. That's why I did it. And then I looked at my record, because, you know, when you do these, you got to lay it all out there. And I wanted to make sure I had the chops to be worthy of your recommendation. And I thought, well, I've got this unique experience. You're not going to find that much of that. And maybe I should make myself available. And lo and behold, I got the call from Governor Lee. Hey, Dwight, it's Bill Lee. So that was a good call to receive. And I was so humbled by that and honored to be before you. So I realize that many of you may have questions, and I want you to know, despite what Aaron says, and don't worry, I'll follow your directions. But my life is an open book, so I want to make myself available to you. I want you to be comfortable with who I am and what I stand for. But I do believe that my experience and my value set is something that would serve Tennesseans well, and that's what I want to do. So thank you, Chairman Farmer.
Well, thank you for that. Very, very well done. Members, do we have any questions for Mr. Tarwater? Do we have any questions? Representative Garrett, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman Farmer. Thank you very much for putting yourself here and making your experience part of what we hope will just make our Supreme Court even better. You'll probably get several questions about judicial philosophy or whatnot, but I'd like to ask you hopefully a very, very simple question on some of your experience. The legal profession can be a very challenging profession, and you are going to be justice on at least our state's level's highest court in the land, and that would be, one would argue, the pinnacle of the legal profession, to be not only a judge, the trial court level, but certainly a justice in the Tennessee Supreme Court. And I was curious if you could provide us a little detail on what has been in your career, and then I've got a follow-up, the best advice that someone ever gave you, in case there's someone listening, hearing this, that aspires to be a judge one day, or a lawyer for that matter. What has been the best advice that you've received throughout your professional career?
I'm going to give you 2 answers
Okay.
to that. And Mr. Garrett, I know that Representative Garrett, you're
That's
one of my
fine.
colleagues. And so I had my original law partner was a guy named Don Payne. Many of you may know Payne. He was very well respected. He's the author of the Tennessee Law of Evidence, and Seemed like he was my law partner, but he was a partner and mentor to us all, I think. And what he told me, Representative Garrett, I'll share with you. He told me two things. He said, always take your rule book to court. Because if you know the rules and you've got them handy, you're going to have an advantage in your cases. I didn't know what I might get asked today. I kid you not. I brought my rule book.
Just in case of the Tennessee Rules of Civil Procedure, right?
I didn't
Among
know,
other rules.
I didn't know what Representative Bolso might ask me, so I wanted to be well prepared. The other thing he told me that is a skill that is transferable to the judiciary. He said, make your written documents perfect. He said, if a judge picks up your document and there's misspellings and, you know, the cites aren't right, then it detracts from your credibility as a lawyer. And so I used to teach my associates, I tried to build on what Professor Payne taught us. And I've told my associates in my firm, make your written documents perfect. Your briefs, your filings, your pleadings, they should be like a work of art. They should be visually pleasing with powerful meaning. So those two things, bring your rule book and make your documents perfect.
I like those. One follow-up, Mr. Chairman. So thank you for providing that for the advice that you received. Now, on the flip side, giving your career, and I'm pretty confident that you're going to get the recommendation of both House and the Senate. What advice would you give to someone else from you that would be hopeful and maybe to be in your same position or that wants to enter into the legal profession? What advice would you give?
It's pretty simple, and it's another transferable skill. And it applies whether you're a farmer or whether you're in the real estate business or whether you're a doctor. But work hard, be diligent, know what you're doing, and be prepared. Because if we're prepared, then, you know, I'm sure I'm going to get a question that I'm not prepared for, but I will do my best. But if you're prepared, then your practice will be enhanced by that. So thank you for those questions, Representative Garrett.
You're very welcome, and I'll be very honored to lend my and vote my support for your nomination to the Supreme Court. Congratulations.
Well, thank you. I'll thank you again after the vote's taken.
All right, Chairman Todd, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just really have one question for you. If I understand correctly, you, with starting your firm, you obviously operated a business,
Yes,
small
sir.
business. And I'd just like for you to comment about the experience of that and maybe what that allows you to bring to this that someone else might not have if they just were a member of a firm versus the co-owner of a firm.
In 1987, April 17, 1987, we formed the firm that still exists. It's called Payne, Tarwater, and Bickers now. Had no money, maybe a client or two. And I don't know that you could do this now, but I signed a note and I borrowed the money to start that firm on my signature. And I wonder if that would happen today. Not thinking that it would. And making payroll and trying to get clients, trying to get customers, trying to get people who trusted you is a difficult thing to do, no matter what business you're in. But it can be really difficult when you're a lawyer and there's certain ethical restrictions about what you can do and what you can't do. And I think I mentioned to you when I talked with you earlier today, I don't know that anybody's missed a paycheck in my firm except for me. I know what it feels like not to have the money coming in. Know what it feels like to have to sign a guarantee on an office lease, and the pressure that gives one to make your business successful. So we've been blessed. My career, I tried a case in 1986 in Chattanooga, and people flew in to watch me try this case. I was 31 years old. And from that case, I began to get clients on a national basis. And so you never know what opportunity you will be presented. But you work hard, take a chance, hope for the best, try to take care of your people. So that's what we've tried to do. Now, I will tell you that I wound up representing a lot of big companies. And part of the practice, the litigation practice, I know this is unusual. You think, well, you go try a case and you try to win it. It's not that simple sometimes. You want to do well, but you also want the outcome to have a positive effect on your client. You want them to get something for what you're giving them. And so we were always real cognizant that our work was valued. So that's my answer, Representative Todd. Thank you for the question.
Very good. I have Representative Bolsa on the list. You recognize, sir?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon, Mr. Tarwater.
And Representative Bolso, I'm so glad to see your smiling face and that you're calling me Mr. Tarwater now.
I have the unique experience on the committee of having litigated against you. I don't think anyone else up here has. But
you're not going to tell them how the case came out, are you?
I'm not going to mention it.
Okay.
I'll let you do that. And I'll refrain from asking about your view on Rule 803 1.2D of the Rules of Evidence. Let me.
I got it here.
I know you got it there. Let me instead ask you this. You used the term in your testimony this morning, and I also saw it in your application for the nomination.
Yes, sir.
Of obedience to the law,
Right.
which really struck me as an amazingly humble phrase to use with regard to the role of a judge in our judicial system. So my question, Mr. Tarwater, is exactly what is obedience to the law, and how will your work as a justice on the Tennessee Supreme Court manifest that value?
We are a nation of laws. It's been said that we are a nation of laws, not men. Nation of laws, not persons. The rule of law is paramount in my view. And as lawyers, we take an oath to uphold the law. As judges, we'll take an oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States and the state of Tennessee. But I know what you're asking me about, and in my view, it goes beyond that. We are servants of the law, and this body, this General Assembly, gives us the law. And the role of the judiciary, in my view, is limited, and it's our job to apply the law that you give us. So you may have seen my previous remarks that I consider myself to be a textualist. And the most obedient thing a judge can do is give effect to the words of the Constitution or the statute that you give the state. And so that's what I mean by obedience.
I have a follow-up, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Let me, if I could, Mr. Tarwater, move from the abstract to the concrete.
Yes, sir.
Understanding that you're a textualist and that you honor this concept of obedience to the law. Is there some American jurist, either in Tennessee or in the United States, that would be familiar to the members of the committee who you hold up as someone who embodies the type of judicial philosophy that you would employ on the Tennessee Supreme Court?
Yes, sir. And you asked for a concrete answer, and so I'm going to give you a real life example. When I was counsel to the governor, we were monitoring a case in the United States Supreme Court called King versus Burwell. The case was an Affordable Care Act case. And the question in the case was really about 4 words in the Affordable Care Act. In discussing the exchanges, which would have funded the health care costs, there were 4 words in there. Those 4 words were established by the state. Established by the state. Justice Roberts wrote the majority opinion. It was a 5-4 opinion, and he said those words, established by the state, don't really mean established by the state, because if they did, then it would create chaos in the healthcare markets. Now, I admire Justice Roberts for his tone and his tenor, the way he runs the court, for his intellect, and for the administration of the judiciary. So that is a role that a Supreme Court justice would have. The dissent was written by Justice Scalia, and he said, as you might expect, established by the state means established by the state. I'm in the Scalia camp.
Thank you. One final question, Mr. Chairman.
Very good.
If I might. Moving from the sublime to the more mundane, one of the things that I noticed in Governor Lee's budget was a $75 million investment, if it's obviously approved by the General Assembly, in an electronic e-filing system for all state courts in Tennessee. Given your experience both in state and federal courts across the country, do you see value in bringing Tennessee into the modern age and having electronic filing across the state of Tennessee?
A very careful question by an advocate that I respect a great deal. I've seen filings about every way they can be filed, as you have too, I'm sure. I've written it out on a legal pad and filed things. I've seen different states have different requirements. The policy issue of electronic filing and how it's paid for is squarely in the hands of the General Assembly. In my practice, we use e-filing in the federal court system quite a bit, and it certainly works well. The budgetary matters and how it would get rolled out will be something that is a bridge to be crossed. And while I can say it's been helpful in my practice, I think I probably need to wait to get on the job to see how far that goes. But I do think it's commendable that the governor has that in the budget.
Thank you, Mr. Tarwater. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. And thank you. Chair Lady Littleton, you're recognized, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you for coming into my office today. I really enjoyed our visit, you telling us where you came from and how you got to where you are today. So I really appreciated all of that. So, and I appreciate the decisions that you have made along the way.
Thank you.
But if the need to appoint a new attorney general should arise, what qualities would you look for in a suitable candidate?
I want the state to have the best lawyer it can have. I think experience matters, intellect matters, diligence matters, devotion matters, commitment to the principles that have made our state great. And I think the Supreme Court did a very good job with General Scarametti. And I know they did a good job with General Slatery.
Any additional questions, ma'am?
Thank you. I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank
And I
you,
have-
Representative Littleton.
And I have Representative Capley up next. You're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Tarwater, for your willingness to serve and the passion that you have for this position. I can tell sitting from back here that you're very passionate. But my question's a little bit different. Will you tell us a little bit about your personal life? What's a day or a week in the life of Mr. Tarwater like?
Well, I want to stay healthy and fit, so I got to chase the governor's legal counsel all over the Cordell Hull building for the last 2 days. That was an interesting way to spend time. I live on the Tennessee River. I have a boat that I like to get out in from time to time. I have 3 children, great kids. Many of you, if you know my history, you know I lost my wife in 2012. My kids did great, and that has kept me from the pit. And I spend a lot of time with them. I have 5 grandchildren, 4 boys and 1 new little girl. So I like to spend time with them. Now, my daughter and her husband live in Athens, Georgia. So I hope that doesn't affect anyone's vote today. I guess it's not a bad time to live in Athens, Georgia, but they were both Georgia Bulldogs and, you know, kids. And I know you're a football coach, Representative Capley, so you probably get it. My oldest son, many of you know, was an Olympic gold medalist. He has a business located in Nashville and Knoxville and Greenville, South Carolina. My youngest son, who was a college basketball player, is a healthcare consultant. So I spend a lot of time with my kids. I love to be with friends. I work a lot. And if you're to confirm me, I'll be finding a whole bunch of new ways to spend my time, I'm sure.
President Capley, is that it? Thank you. Chairman Russell, you recognize, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and congratulations, Mr. Tarwater, on making it this far. I wish you the best and look forward to seeing you get appointed hopefully here in a little while or next few days. But what role does legislative history or intent play in interpreting statutes or constitutional provisions?
Great question. What I find reliable is the words on the paper, the words that are passed. Arguments that are made in committee or on the floor are not what you give us. So as a judge, I got to decide, you know, what's the law? And the law is what you give us. And so I can't see the legislative history. I guess you never say never, but when I can't think of a single instance where I would find it helpful. Let's put it that way. What's helpful to me is the bill you pass.
Thank you, and the very best in whatever happens.
Oh,
But
thank you, sir.
I look forward to seeing you appointed.
Leader Lambert, you recognize, sir.
Thank you. Good to see you again, my friend. That's literally, I'm going to keep my comments very short, no question. Everybody else has asked better questions than I could have come up with, I can assure you. But we've been friends for several years. I've long admired you as an attorney and look forward to see how you serve Tennessee extraordinarily well on the bench and, in fact, the highest court in the land, and as far as our land is concerned. So, and just in my humble opinion, I cannot imagine a better candidate for this position. So good luck, my friend, and early congratulations and hopes that you'll be confirmed.
Well, thank you, Leader. I'm even more humbled now. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Vice Chair Jernigan, you recognize.
Thank you, Chairman, and welcome, Mr. Tarwater.
Thank you, sir.
Over the past 5-6 years, there is a perception among the public that the courts, federal, state, and local, are becoming more politicized. And, you know, and just recently, we have changed the jurisdiction on how we do constitutional cases. And so what I really want to ask you, and just maybe put on the record, is that when you decide your position on a case, that it will be the facts of the law, it'll be case law, it'll be precedent, and the best practices of jurisprudence, and that you will leave politics at the door. And I would just like you to answer that question, please.
Thank you for the question. I brought another document that I'd like to, if I could rummage around here for a second. Because it's going to help me answer this question. So let me start off by saying a justice of your highest court should be free from influence, should be fair and impartial, and should not pick sides. It's not a high school football game. We need to call it like we see it. And so, yes, sir, that is my answer. And I'll give you another real life example of that. I have Justice Page's oath of office that I found in my papers when I left the governor's office. I prepared this document, and I'll read it to you. It says, I will faithfully and impartially discharge all the duties incumbent upon me as Justice of the Supreme Court of the State of Tennessee to the best of my skill and ability, so help me God. Faithfully and impartially. I promise you, I will never violate that oath.
Any follow-up?
Mr. Chairman, it's an answer that I was looking for, and thank you for accommodating me and allowed to be on the record. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Parkinson, you're recognized. If you were,
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for being here.
Yes, sir.
You're obviously an incredibly impressive individual, right? And
Well, thank you, sir.
right, yeah. You know, sitting here listening to everything, you know, I'm taking it all in, and you're obviously impressed and impressive, and apparently pretty good attorney too, right? Apparently, and so
Except for my case with Representative Bolsa.
Right, and many others with Representative Bolsa also, right? For the everyday Tennessean, where's the commonality between your life, you know, your triumphs, your struggles? Because here's one thing, I'm a people watcher by trade, right? I'm a people watcher. You know, I just love to watch people. But what I've learned in watching people is this: no matter how high you get or how big of a star you become, there's always a story, right? And the story of being a regular person. What are those areas of commonality so that people not only see you as the Supreme Court judge, which you're going to get my vote too, but also see you as the person, so that they understand that you're still an individual whether you don this black robe or not. Talk to me about that.
Let me talk to you about that in a couple of ways. We all make choices in life. We choose where we live. We choose the schools we send our kids to. We make choices about our careers. Lawyers make choices about their clients. I chose to represent a bunch of big companies. I also chose to represent a homeless man that lived in a doghouse. And I tried to bring the same zeal to the homeless man that lived in the doghouse that I did to GE, because that was my duty. That's being obedient to the law. So that maybe is a question with a more professional answer. My firm was recognized as the pro bono firm of the year 3 of the 4 years just before I joined the governor's office. And serving those that needed help and couldn't afford it is something that is very, very rewarding. It's a great way to use your skills. I can, and the lady who was trying to keep her car on the road, the drug addicted Vietnam vet who sold cardboard boxes out of a dumpster to survive, those are my clients. And for me, it was their case. For them, it was their life. And so I can offer you that. On Christmas Eve 2012, my wife suffered a fatal cardiac arrest. And I had to gather my kids around me and make the decision to remove the life supports. A couple of things about that. One, tragedy is part of all of our lives. And that was certainly the greatest tragedy of my life. And we're not promised all good. We will have struggles, and I've had struggles. So I will tell you this. Making the decision to remove those life supports was the hardest decision I ever made. And how does that relate to me being on the Supreme Court? I can promise you I'm not afraid to make a hard decision. Thank you for the question.
President Parkinson, any follow-up?
And thank you. Let me say this. It's the story. Remember, everyone has a story, and let me thank you for being so brave to tell your story. Here and like you said, there, we all deal with our own, our personal struggles, and that's one that many people would not be able to rebound from. And so, I commend you. I'm looking forward to you, serving in this position. And again, and thank you for allowing us an opportunity to peer into not only into your life, but into your inner being, with what you shared with us, because, I'm sure that was a lot, and it still is, I'm sure, today. Thank you so much again, and I truly appreciate you.
Well, you're quite welcome, and thank you for the kind words.
Representative Beck, you recognize.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Tarwater, for being here today. I didn't get to meet with you before this. So I just wanted to say, first of all, that being on the civil side of the law, we're thrilled to have someone with your background and your in-depth knowledge and coming from Mr. Payne. I can't imagine that had to be a bar question every day. But your practice, it seems it's mostly been corporations and defense work. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, that's probably a fair statement. And I know you're one of my colleagues and respected colleagues, Representative Beck, and if the question is going towards criminal experience, is that where you were going to go with that? Or?
No, I don't do any criminal law. So
Okay.
no, I wasn't. That's not where I was going with that.
I should let you ask the question. I will tell you this, as a lawyer, that it's a lot easier to ask questions than it is to answer them.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so
yes,
yes,
what percentage of your personal law practice was representing defense and corporations?
I don't know how to take a snapshot of that. At some point, it might have been 80 or 90%. More recently, I've been on the other side of the V, as we would say. I represented the state in the opioid litigation against Walgreens, a case that was quickly settled. I'm counsel for the plaintiff in a healthcare fraud case alleging a practice known as upcoding. So I've been on both sides. When I was national trial counsel for General Electric, probably upwards of 80 or 90% of my cases were probably defense work for big companies.
So do you feel like you're comfortable walking that line with plaintiffs' cases and defense, being from the defense world?
Yes, sir. And I'll tell you why, because I have a great knowledge of how plaintiffs' counsel work and what's effective. And so I have that. But the primary reason is because my oath requires me to be impartial and it requires me to be fair. So I can assure you I'm going to be fair and impartial and call them the way I see them.
And Chairman Garrett when he was talking about advice and things like that. At one time in my career, I thought about running for judge, and a wise man told me that legal practice is a lot like a ball game or an athletic event. Sometimes it's football, sometimes it's basketball, but you have a mindset of either a player or a referee. And at that point in time, I realized that, I would not, my mindset was not as of a referee. So you're going from being a player to being a referee. So it's your mindset that you think that you can excel at being a referee.
Absolutely. And I love the analogy. And when I have been considered or encouraged to seek judicial positions in the past, which I have not sought, I use the same analogy. I said, I'm a player, not a referee. But the key thing here is this is the Tennessee Supreme Court. We should all, those of us who love the law and love our profession, should want to serve if we can. So if I'm honored to serve, and I really want this job, I can assure you that I'll be a good referee. And while I wish, like the Tennessee Vandy basketball game had ended a second sooner, I can assure you that those rules are there for a reason. And no matter who you're rooting for, you got to follow the rules.
Absolutely. Thank you very, very much. And I'm excited to support your nomination.
Well, thank you, Representative Beck. I really appreciate that.
Very good. And last on the list, we have Representative Powell. You're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Tarwater. I wanted to ask, and part of this was taken up by, I thought, I guess, serving on this committee, I was going to have to worry about the lawyers beating me to the questions, but apparently the non-lawyers beat me. Representative Russell and Jernigan kind of asked two of the questions I was interested in. But I want to ask a follow-up, kind of based upon your comment about judicial intent, legislative intent. And as someone who oftentimes is part of the minority on votes that are taken and not on the winning side, that oftentimes the laws of the state that prevail, we try to, as most of us in this room do, try to ask questions that will be part of the record or that might be important for that legislative intent. So I guess my overall question, you answered about legislative intent, but can you talk a little bit about the role of the minority in the importance of that in making, I guess, decisions and looking at, or are you strictly just looking at the textual document in front of you?
Let me tell you what I have to say about that. Okay. And that's a great question, Representative Powell. Thank you for that. And I hope you'll be in the majority today. I want to talk about the minority. Okay, and I look at that the same way I would look at a dissent from the bench. The minority makes the majority better. A dissent makes a majority opinion better. So the minority has a role. And sometimes when a bill is passed, as we all know, nobody gets everything they want, but the finished product becomes the law. And that is what the judges should take and rely on. So I think that's a very good question. And that would be the way I would view that.
Very good. Any follow-up, sir? You recognize.
Not a question. Just again, I commend you. Really appreciate your testimony here today. Your personal background, very compelling. And, thank you very much. Appreciate your qualifications, your answers before this committee.
Thank you, Representative Powell.
Very good. And that's, members, that's all I have on the list. Anyone else would like to ask Mr. Tarwart any questions before we go back in session? All right, without objection, we're going to go back in session. With that said, Representative Bolso, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It is my privilege to move that this committee recommend to the House of Representatives confirmation of Governor Bill Lee's nomination of Dwight E. Tarwater as a justice on the Tennessee Supreme Court.
Very good. Proper motion, properly seconded. All those in favor of Representative Bolso's motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Ayes have it. Congratulations, sir. All right, members, we do have a calendar. We have a regular calendar. We also have an addendum calendar. And without objection, I'd like to go down to our addendum calendar. That'd be item 1. That would be House Bill 1 by Leader Lamberth. Wherever you'd like to present, sir, is just fine by you. So if I get a motion in a second on that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll go to the podium if you'd like.
Either place, sir, you're more than welcome to present from. And members, looks like we do have an amendment there, coded 003880, and that does not make the bill, does it? You want to go?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman, it's just some clerical issues that were caught in the drafting, and it changes a couple of words. And so it's not a substantive amendment. It is literally just a clerical amendment.
Very good. Members, have any questions regarding that amendment? If not, let's go ahead and vote and adopt amendment, House Amendment 03880 to House Bill 1. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Ayes have it. Now we're back on the bill as amended. You recognize, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members, it's a very straightforward bill. It just says for puberty blockers, hormones, some of the surgeries that have been done on minors for these particular purposes, it would prohibit those medical practices in Tennessee for all the reasons that have been stated in both Health Sub, Health Full, and in this bill. And for purposes of this committee, the remedies, if someone were to go down this road, are civil in nature. So it would be a civil lawsuit or an administrative proceeding by the Attorney General's office. And Mr. Chairman, with that, I stand ready for questions.
Very good, members. And we do have four individuals that have given notice to this office to testify. I'd like to have them do that if possible. But if we have any questions for Leader Lamberth, more than ask those now. Otherwise, he's going to be available for questions after testimony's over. Any questions for Leader Lamberth? If not, I would like to go out of session without objection and hear from our folks that have given notice to testify. Number 1, I have Eli Givens. Eli Givens. If you would just set up there, any of those seats is fine, the one you've got, and just be sure that there's a button, looks like a little mouth speaking there, and be sure red light's on. And you'll have 2 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee. I'm Eli Givens, a senior in Williamson County. If you would, please pause for a moment and picture a teenager you know and love. Think about what brings them joy. Maybe it's a long walk or winning their favorite game. As you picture this person you care so much about, what comes to mind? What do you want for their future? Most loving, caring family members would say, I want them to be happy, independent, and contributing to a more loving and peaceful world. Now imagine this person, not with joy, but with fear and shame. How might you respond? Most loving, caring family members would truly listen with compassion and seek to create a safe space of unconditional love. Loving family members would be able to hold space and compassion even if they didn't fully understand. I could tell you a lot about my story and how my family and care team helped me move from panic and fear towards joy and thriving. But as a transgender person, why should I have to share traumatic experiences and ghastly data in order for you to truly hear me? Why should I have to tell you about being horrified at the thought of being myself because of what people might say and do to me? Why should I have to tell you I found joy in writing my real name on a school paper for the first time? Why do we as a community have to sit in front of you and tell you the truth, the very truth that you have to ignore to support hateful legislation like this? The reality is, as human beings, we have great capacity for empathy, but often our own fear and experiences cause us to create a wall that shuts out the very people we love. I face people every day acting from that place of fear and shame. Standing up for my authentic self, I'm often called brave. However, as one of my heroes says, living authentically is not an act of courage as much as an act of survival. It does take courage, but not because of who I am. My courage is critical in facing those who have given in to fear and rhetoric, like those who support this bill. Spewing hate and enacting these bills endangers those who you say you are protecting. It masquerades as love and care, but is really about control and fear. And now, picture that loved one more time. What would you do to protect them? Do you love them enough to be brave? Brave enough to stand up for them and who they actually are? Children and their loved ones, maybe even your own, are begging you to be brave. In your position, you have the rare power to set precedents. Please use your power to set a precedent of love, empathy, and real protection for our youth. We deserve the space to learn about ourselves, follow our dreams, and grow into the people we're meant to be. We should not only live, but thrive because of your power, not in spite of it. Thank you to those of you who choose to be brave. Thank you.
Very, very good. And thank you for that. I had said you had 2 minutes, but I was going to give you 3 minutes. I believe that's what you were told you're going to get, and I want to be sure you were going to get that. We'll have unlimited time for questions, so you can stay there if you'd like, and I'd like to go ahead, or you can sit back in the back, because once we finish with the rest of the folks who are going to testify, then we can open it up to have questions for all of y'all. So if you just want to stay right there, it's just fine.
Yes, sir.
Erica Boughton. Erica. Either side's fine, wherever you want to go. And you'll have 3 minutes. Just introduce yourself for the record and get started.
My name is. Can you hear me?
No. There's a little button there. Little red light will come on. A little mouthpiece. Sit. Keep on trying.
Can you? Yes.
Yes, there you are.
My name is Erica. I'm a resident of Williamson County. I have a PhD in neuroscience from Vanderbilt, and I'm a mom to 3 young kids. They're in my entire world. I would do anything for them. And I also happen to be one of the parents that this bill will label irresponsible, uninformed, and incapable of making decisions for my children, even criminal. All of you sitting before me today have the critical responsibility of deciding the future of healthcare for Tennessee kids, for my kid. So I want to ask you, do you know the medications that are on this bill? Do you know the side effects? Do you know which ones are irreversible? How do these side effects compare to other medications we give children? What are the outcomes for children denied these medications? Can you answer all of these questions in great detail? Because if you can't, then how can you sit there and tell me that you know more than me about the decisions to make for my own child? Seizures, cardiac arrhythmias, coma, neurological deficits. These are the potential serious side effects of insulin given to children with diabetes. Irreversible heart damage, irreversible lung damage, secondary cancer, infertility. These are the potential serious side effects of children given chemotherapy. I could march dozens of children in here with irreversible side effects to medications that we've given them to things like cancer. Are we going to prevent these children from getting medications as well? When faced with the potential of death or misery for our children, we're going to take the better alternative because there's nothing more irreversible than death. If your child is hurting, you help them. I don't know a world in which I would defy medical advice, my own knowledge, or my child. What are we basing this legislature on? Because it's not facts and it's not experts. It's fear, intolerance, and unwillingness to understand something that's different than yourself. I've heard the stories of people who've detransitioned, and they are tragic, but they are in the minority. To ban just these medications for just this indication is by very definition discrimination. You have options here today to prove this is about protecting kids. You could simply remove the medications from this bill. You can mandate outcome tracking. You can mandate tighter criteria or more rigorous monitoring. Any of these things would protect children. But if you ban them, we have decades of research that show us exactly what will happen, and children will die. And this is a near statistical certainty. Are you comfortable sitting up here today passing a bill that will lead to dead children? This bill is one of dozens designed to strip transgender people of their rights. Let's call a spade a spade. They're being targeted and attacked. And you are the Civil Justice Committee, and I challenge you to vote like it today.
Thank you. Next on the list, I have Samantha Williams. Samantha? Erica, if you be sure to make sure she knows that button's on there. Thank you so much. If you would go ahead and just introduce yourself to the committee, and you have 3 minutes.
Samantha Williams. Good morning, Chairman, Vice Chairman, Leader Lamberth. I'm here as a mother. I'm here to ask you to push a pause button on HB1 as amended. In this bill, the legislature is violating our rights as parents to make the best medical decisions for our child. You see, my daughter turns 15 this weekend. The party is going to have pizza and brownies because it's her favorite. She is a happy, healthy kid who is not hurting anyone. Her joy, her smile, her confidence would not be what they are if it was not for the blockers that she's been on for 1.5 years. As this bill stands, it means she would have to stop her blockers right after her 16th birthday. It would cause real physical, medical harm, real mental health harm. That is harming children. You are causing permanent change on my child by passing this bill. You see, our family has not taken this blocker decision lightly. When our daughter came out to us, loving her and accepting her was the easy part. The hard part was trying to figure out how to help her live in the world just as she is. It was the start of 1 million conversations, trust me. A lot of tearful, long nights for months. It was conversations with our family and our friends. It was conversations with our doctors, with our pediatrician, a counselor for my daughter, a counselor for me and my husband, an endocrinologist. And we went so many times before we started blockers, trust me. We took our time. We did our research. My husband played devil's advocate a lot, even though it annoys me. And we wouldn't be good parents if we hadn't taken all this time for discernment. It is our responsibility and our right as parents to make medical decisions for our child. Just like it was with vaccines and masks, they are medical decisions for our child. I can't tell you how much it hurts to think that the state legislature could take away our right to make medical decisions for our child. As I finish up, I would like to quote an email from Senate Majority Leader Jack Johnson. He said that we should not be doing anything permanent in nature until they're an adult and have the ability to consent to treatment. And I actually agree with him. What I'm here for is to talk about permanent in nature. In passing this bill, you are literally forcing my child to go through male puberty. She will take on permanent male sex characteristics that she does not want or need right now. Her voice will deepen, her shoulders will broaden, she will grow facial hair. These changes are permanent. You have effectively taken away her choice. When she turns 18, she won't have a choice. She'll have already gone through male puberty.
All right, ma'am. I had to do about a little over 3 minutes there, but we'll have plenty of questions if somebody needs to ask you, and you can follow up on that. Kathy Simbach, you're recognized there to sit down and be sure the red light's on. And once you start, you'll have 3 minutes as well. Just introduce yourself to the committee.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Chairman Farmer and members of the committee. My name is Kathy Simbach, and I'm the Executive Director of the ACLU of Tennessee. The ACLU of Tennessee will sue to stop this unconstitutional bill if it is passed, and we will sue so that people like the individuals you just heard from, good Tennesseans, know that they matter. I know you've already heard that over 95% of youth are satisfied with the gender-affirming care that they receive, that suicidality and suicidal ideation decrease when children receive the care that they need, and that all major medical associations support this care. Also, that it has cost millions of dollars in other states for the courts to enjoin this bill with lawsuits brought by other affiliates in the ACLU. I am going to read a statement from one of the many attorneys here in Tennessee who will be in our corner as we stand up and fight for trans Tennesseans. I was born and raised a proud Tennessean. I knew by the age of 3 that I was male. This instinct followed me throughout childhood, and I began my transition in high school. I've been receiving medical treatment for gender dysphoria for 15 years. I've made a successful career as an attorney serving the people of Tennessee, a state I love dearly. I'm a proud husband and uncle, and I love being close to my family in Tennessee. I would not be successful in school or in life if I had not transitioned. We as trans people and our families do not take transitioning lightly. I did everything I could and was in therapy for many years to try to resist medical transition because I knew that the stigma attached to being transgender can be violent and deadly. However, I came to a point where the depression and anxiety related to gender dysphoria brought me to the brink of suicide. Transitioning saved my life and allowed me to thrive. I am deeply disturbed to witness the dark turn that the General Assembly has taken toward medical care for trans youth and children. This legislation was inspired by a post from a professional blogger who organized a rally against child genital mutilation here, even though we all now know there are no genital surgeries performed on trans youth in Tennessee. Yet many in this body seem to refuse to acknowledge the true medical facts, regardless of the harm it does to children and families in this state. As an attorney who advocates for the rights of all Tennesseans, I hear from parents of trans youth every day. I hear of the brutal hate and the fear they suffer at school due to the laws that have targeted them over the last few years. I hear of the pain they suffer daily, not due to their condition, but due to the hateful and vitriolic rhetoric that is spewed every day on televisions in their communities and even from the seats you occupy today. These young people are only trying to live and have a decent life, one where they do not fear using a public restroom, where their teachers respect them enough to use their names, where they are allowed to dress in a way that is comfortable to them. Make no mistake, passing this bill will cost children's lives. It is cowardly and shameful to pass laws that target trans children and their families rather than addressing the real issues that affect children in Tennessee, issues like education, improving access to health care, appropriately resourcing the Department of Children's Services, and increasing access to community programs for children. These children cannot speak up for themselves, so I'm submitting this testimony to you today. I urge you to stop damaging trans children and their families and to vote no on House Bill 1. Thank you.
And that was right on 3 minutes. Thank you so much. Members, do we have any questions for any of our guests who are here to testify today? Representative Powell, you recognized? Get you on the list.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I appreciate your courage in coming before us today and giving your testimony. I wanted to ask a question about the process that you've gone through or that your child might have gone through. The length of time that has taken, has that involved, your family? Has that also involved physicians in making those decisions? And, can you speak to that and the length of how you go to, and this just isn't, I understand, a very important choice, but I would assume that many, many days and hours and years, in fact, are spent making these decisions. If you could speak to that, I would appreciate it.
Recognized.
For our family, we started with, there was 6 months of family discussions. Like I said, those long, long, tearful nights. Then we went to our pediatrician, who did not have any experience with this. She did some research and she came back to us. She came back to us with what her recommendation was, which was to send us to an endocrinologist. It took a while to get in with them. And then it was let's see, another 6 months, they said that we have to have a counselor. We'd actually already gotten her a counselor. So I would say from the time we met with the endocrinologist, it was 3 or 4 meetings, 6 months. They require a waiting period per this like quality standards. I can't think of the term of it. Yeah, so she's been on just a year and a half.
Very good. Any follow-up?
I think she has.
I don't want to share specifics of my specific child, but I will say that we have heavily researched this. This is not something that we just woke up and decided to do. This is not something I chose for my child. This is who my child is. And this is something we've known since my child was 5 years old. This is not something they woke up one day and said that they wanted to do this. There are very, very strict guidelines in place. You have to go through multiple mental health procedures, therapy, counseling. You meet with a team of doctors. We're not just handing out pills to kids. It's a very, very long process. We've just begun it. We have a long road. And if this bill is passed, then we have an even longer road. So,
Representative Powell, you recognize?
And I know you might have one other thing I want to ask, and I know you have maybe a follow-up you could say too. I take the mental health of children in our state very seriously. I know mental health issues have impacted me personally and my family. Not me, I don't have mental health issues, thank goodness, but I certainly have. It has impacted my family dealing with mental health issues and members of my family. And I realize how challenging that is. Can you talk a little bit about the mental health challenges that you or your children face or go through as part of, first of all, part of the trans community, but then also going through this entire process?
All right, who's that question directed to? Is that directed to Ms. Williams?
Yes, the speaker on the far left. I'm sorry, to my left.
You recognize, ma'am.
For our family, my daughter, at the beginning of it had no, before this all came up, she had no, prescribed or I'm blanking on the word. She had no mental health conditions that were under any other, seeing a counselor for. In about a year before she came out to us, she began to be more withdrawn. She wouldn't make eye contact. But it wasn't really a depression either. We were just starting to identify and realize how dark things had kind of gotten for her. She was not to the point of suicidal ideation, I will say that, but she was withdrawn. She was not herself. She knew that something was wrong and different. And then she found the words for it, and then she came out to us, and then she started seeing a counselor. The counselor has worked through a whole range of issues with her, but I can't possibly imagine where she would be this 2.5 years later if she had not gotten the medical treatment and the counseling that she needed. I will say the other thing, and the way that I think it's helpful to talk about the blockers specifically, is that they are a pause button. That's what it was for her mental health and for us. For a family, I know part of this bill and a lot of the impetus for it is when people, that they should have a choice when they turn 18, that youth don't have the ability to make an informed choice. But the puberty blockers are a pause. They're giving families a chance, like she can wait till she's 18 to make that final decision for herself. If you take away this bill, you take away our pause button.
Very good. Representative Powell? Good to go? Okay, thank you. Representative Beck, you recognize, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And my question is to Eli. Eli, thank you for being here. Very brave to come and share your story. I to specifics about the path, but I am wondering about the ages. When did you first start these ideas that you were maybe not the sex that you were meant to be, and when did these thoughts start coming, and how did it progress?
You're recognized.
Can you hear me? There we go.
Yes.
So it was definitely a long road for me because I personally identify as non-binary. So I didn't have the language readily available to me. And to say none of these, like the transgender community is not new, the LGBT community is not new, but we do have more research and more organizations working on our side. And so because of that, I was able to get the language I needed to express myself. And so I was about 12 or 13 when I first realized I was transgender, and it was about 14 or 15 that I realized I was non-binary. So it was definitely a path for me, but there were signs when I was younger, I just didn't have the language available for me.
Representative Beck.
How old are you today?
I'm 18 years old.
Okay. So turning 18, do you feel like the world's in front of you now, or tell me how your thoughts of the future are?
Yeah, I certainly do. And I can say without my support system and without the people, my loved ones and the people who are on my side, I wouldn't be here today. And I am so incredibly grateful to have the language I need. And I wouldn't be here and I wouldn't have the future that I'm going to have if I didn't have the healthcare I needed and didn't have the support I needed from my doctors and my therapists. And so I definitely have a bright future coming up ahead of me. And I hope that more kids are able to have that opportunity as well.
Representative Beck, you're recognized.
That's thrilling. And in all the discussions that I've had about this, we need to get the kids to 18. And I notice this with other children. Everything when you're in 14, 15, 16, they can't see far down the pike. They can't see a successful future like you can now. And I'm just thrilled to hear your story and that you've gotten to be 18 and that you now see a bright future. And I wish that for all children.
So when I was 11 or 12, I did have I had a lot of struggles with suicidal ideation. I knew who I was. That was not the problem. It was how people were treating me, how people were seeing me, and what was being taken away from me. At 12 years old, I shouldn't have to be worried about what the government is doing to me and my community. I shouldn't have to be worried about that. I knew exactly who I was at 11, 12, and I knew what future was ahead of me. And that hasn't changed since I turned 18. I saw a bright future ahead of me when I was 11 or 12, but I didn't think that was possible for me living as a transgender person. I thought I would have to be transgender and have to hide it, or I didn't have a future for myself at all. And so I think it's important to acknowledge that 11 or 12-year-olds, they can see that future and they can know who they are.
Thank you.
Very good.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Representative Balso, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is for Dr. Bowden.
Mike.
Mic's on. Is your mic on?
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is for Dr. Bowden. You use the term in your testimony, fear and intolerance. Is it your position, Dr. Bowden, that those who, based upon genetics and all of human history, believe that there are two sexes, male and female, and that no person or set of so-called medical professionals can change a person's sex from one to the other, are afraid and intolerant?
You're recognized, ma'am.
I think that's a philosophical question. I respect everyone's backgrounds, opinions, and moral standpoint, but I think that that's an opinion. And I think that the statement that you just made should not be guiding legislature for people who may not believe that.
One follow-up, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, you're recognized.
You agree, Dr. Bowden, that the members of this body have an obligation to protect children in Tennessee from harm, correct?
Yes, so Representative Bolso, you're my representative. What are you going to do to protect my child?
Any-
One more question.
You're recognized.
Dr. Bowden, you understand that there are others in Williamson County and across the state who recognize that many children have been harmed by these procedures that this legislation seeks to prohibit, correct?
Ma'am,
I
you're
do.
recognized.
Can I read you something?
As long as it's relevant to the question, you may.
Okay.
If not, then no.
Yes, it is. Well, okay. This is the latest study from the Trans Youth Project. We found that an average of 5 years after their initial social transition, at the end of this period, both youth identified as binary transgender youth, 94%. And there are other studies larger than this that show that the percentage of children who detransition is quite small, and that actually a majority of these kids detransition not because of intrinsic factors, because of external factors such as intolerance from others. So we're talking about a very, very, very small portion of the population that we're making laws to presumably protect, while in the process harming all the rest of these transgender children with no alternative path. I haven't heard anyone suggest what we're going to do for the actual transgender children in Tennessee after this bill is passed. What are we going to do for those children?
One final question, Mr. Chairman, if I might.
You're recognized.
Do you agree, Dr. Bowden, that it is those who support this fiction and this fantasy that a person can change their sex who are causing the harm that we see in children across this entire state?
With all due respect, sir, it is not fiction or fantasy for my family. It is deeply personal. It is extremely difficult to understand if you are not in the situation. It is hard. I understand it is hard to understand something that is different from your value set, that's different from how you were raised, that's different from your religious beliefs. But for my child, this is very, very real. This is not a fantasy. It's not fiction. It is my child's life that you are affecting.
And thank you, ma'am. And that's all the members I have on the list. Seeing no more hands without objection, we're going to go back in session. Thank you all. Thank you all for your testimony. Yes. I'm sorry. You had plenty of time to be on the list. I looked for hands. They weren't there. So I've already gavelled back into session. Now the question's been called. That's a non-debatable motion. All those in favor of sending House Bill 1, excuse me. Okay.
Hold on, previous question.
Very good. I detected objection to previous question. I do see 3 hands. Members, looks like we're going to vote on previous question. All those in favor of previous question, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. No. The ayes have it. Previous question prevails. Now we're voting to send House Bill 1 to calendar and rules. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, say no. No. And the ayes have it. Bill moves on. And that looks like that's all the time we have for the day. We do appreciate y'all coming to testify today and taking your time. And that will conclude our committee meeting today. So I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Thank you.